welcome to the next video in the a3020 series. In today's video we're going to be removing the electrolytic capacitors just highlighted with the red arrow just on the bottom left there. There's just a small handful on this board, and yeah, the technique we'll be using today is to just use hot air to heat them up and then just pull them off nice and gently. So the first process is to just use some Kapton tape to try and make sure that some of the more delicate chips are not affected by the heat that we'll be applying in a moment. So yeah, this Kapton tape's just a good heat resistant barrier. So to remove these capacitors, I'm just applying some flux on the two pads on each side. This will aid in heat transfer when we get the gun out. So yeah, to remove these capacitors, there's a couple of different ways. First way, you could just grab it and twist it with a pair of pliers. Quite destructive, you know. It's a 50-50 chance whether you're going to actually rip a pad off, and some of these boards are actually quite delicate, so probably wouldn't recommend doing that. You could use just your standard soldering iron, just heat it both sides up, and then yeah, just slowly but gently heating both sides, and then using your pliers just to basically pull it off. But today, and the best way that I've found, and the way that I'm going to stick to doing this thing, is to heat it up with just like a hot air gun. Currently got it on about 300 degrees, and yeah, these bigger capacitors do actually take quite a large amount of time to heat up. But yeah, just trying to just generate heat just on the two sides there, without actually kind of heating the can up too much, so as it doesn't explode, which is quite scary and dangerous. So yeah, you probably want to make sure you've got some eyewear on when you're doing this kind of thing. But you can see we're just heating it up gently on one side, then moving to the next, and yeah, testing the capacitor with the needle pliers there, whilst playing with the tape. As that gets hotter, it starts to bend and melt. Now at this point you don't want to apply much pressure with the needle pliers. You're just trying to test to see if it's moving, which side you want to put the heat on. Yeah, and that tape's actually just totally getting in the way, so I'm going to take that off now. Most of the heat's actually just in the board and the area, so now it's probably okay to remove. So I've just moved the heat gun so it's pointing away from the chips a little bit there. And then direct on the pad, and it's lifted off, so that's good. So you can see underneath the capacitor the two pads that it connects to, and they look nice and clean, and doesn't look like there's any damage. It's not lifted up, so that's a good removal. So once you've removed the capacitor, it's a case that you need to clean up the tracks and the pads, just to make sure that you know, nothing's leaked out of the bottom of the capacitor. So as with the video yesterday, we're just going to go back in with a wick with the flux and just give them a little wipe down. And that should get them all nice and shiny and ready to apply the new capacitor on. So that's looking really nice. Small amount of IPA there, just give it a quick brush and get the flux off. So if you go too hard with the removal and cleaning, then you can quite often lift up those little pads. They do come off quite easily on these older boards, but if you go gently and don't use too much temperature, then you should be okay in general. So that's one capacitor removed. Now we need to move over to the next section of the board. There's a small cluster of chips just up around the sort of sound hardware and the output channels. So there's one just at the sort of middle bottom there, and there's a little cluster just coming up here. So you can see there's two large capacitors and then two smaller ones just there. So in this video I'm only going to show removing the other two. The process is going to be exactly the same as we did before. We're just going to heat the area. Not going to use Kapton tape on this on these two, as there's no items in the way that need to be protected particularly. It's quite a sparse board just up on this section. So yeah, we're going to put flux onto both of them and heat the area, and actually to removing one, the heat will transfer around the board and you know, make the next removal of the one by its side just that little bit easier. So applying the flux to the close ones at the same time is quite a good idea. So we're just going to go back in with the heat gun now. It's you know, still at 300 degrees for these larger ones. So in this video, yeah, we're just going to move these two big ones. So yeah, using the same process of just heating, and then we're just going to sort of grasp onto the capacitor and then just slowly wiggle it, not applying too much pressure until it basically just gives weight by itself once the solder's got hot enough. But it takes quite a while before the capacitor starts to rock a little bit. So you know, just the board's just kind of soaking up the heat at the moment. So we're just moving around. You don't want to leave the heat on one area too long, and try not to heat the actual can as best you can. And eventually it will start to rock, and then you know, you just keep moving side to side, a bit more heat on each side, and then it'll give quite easily once it wants to. So I'm going really gently on this one. So it's just a case with this one that there's a large area of board which is basically just heating up around it, and you know, the heat isn't actually getting into the solder that easily. So yeah, it's taking a bit longer than I expect actually to get this thing off. But it is coming, it is starting to move now. But once this is removed, then you'll see that it's moving over to the next one to remove it. It's going to be so much easier. It won't take anywhere near as long as that one did, because the surrounding area has actually just been warmed up by the previous one. So before we clean the removal of that one, we're just going to go straight onto this one and start heating again. And as before, just go gently, then keep testing. So it's starting to move now. And if you wanted to do it quicker, you could, you know, increase the temperature from maybe 300 to maybe 340, 350. But you know, I think slow and steady with nice medium heat is the best way to preserve the pad sort of quality. Just try to reserve yourself and not pull too hard on it. So we just keep testing, keep heating. It's been surprisingly stubborn, this one, but it is just about to go. Just a little bit more. There we go. That's come off now. So now they've been removed, we can just clean the area. So we'll do the same again, get a bit of flux on there, and go in with the soldering iron with the wick. Just give the pads a rub, get ready for applying new solder, and then to put the new capacitors on. So on this board there's only a couple of these SMD capacitors, so you know, it's worth doing, just replacing them. I tend not to replace the 3-hole capacitors unless they're actually bulging or something like that. So yeah, we're replacing them three. There's one other large one just a bit further down the board that we'll see in a moment, and then those two small ones. So for the small ones, I actually just replace them off camera, just because they're a bit fiddly. I just wanted to concentrate a little bit more than having the camera in the way, etc. And yeah, I found those just popped off pretty much straight away. So there's quite a bit of heat in this board, and yeah, just pointed the heat gun at them, and they just popped straight off. So yeah, that's this board pretty much removed and ready for recapping. So we'll leave this video here and catch you in the next one. Thanks.